welcome to today's program. I'm pleased to again have as a guest David Kahle, an industry speaker, author, and consultant who focuses on the sales force. David, welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. It's always a pleasure to be here.
How are things in David's world?
Well, like everybody else, it seems like the life is overwhelming at times. Just so many things to do and so many choices to make. So,
Absolutely.
I guess I'm right there with everybody else.
Yeah, it's a crazy world sometimes. It's a flood or a fire or famine somewhere, but it could be a famine in a sales force, I guess, as well. So we're going to talk about your expertise, improving the sales force in a company or organization.
Okay.
Just some questions I thought I'd put out there to lead into this. We think about what it takes to become an effective salesperson. Does it take formal training? Can they learn on the job? And it reminded me of how I learned how to swim. I bet a lot of our listeners, David, can relate to this. I was on a boat with my grandfather. He pushed me in and said, "Swim, boy." That's on the job training, right?
Yeah, it's on the job training, I guess.
And it's
or survival.
Exactly. It's sink or swim. And I think it could be the same in sales, couldn't it? Sink or swim. What are your thoughts on the job training for a salesperson?
Oh, it's well, there was a time when it probably worked fairly well. Life was simpler, customers were easy to see, competition wasn't as fierce as it is now. So it probably was a time when it worked well. But today, I think it's useless. I mean, it's a waste of time, frankly. And why that is for a couple of reasons. This is a really interesting study was done on good salespeople, and they interviewed them, found out what they said they did to be good, to be successful, and then they sent observers to ride with them and see what they did. And the conclusion of the study was, quote, there was absolutely no relationship between what they said they did and what they actually did. So what that says is good salespeople for the most part, don't know why they're good. They just enjoy the success, but they're not quite sure what they do to bring it out. So you're going to put a new salesperson in the hands of somebody who isn't quite sure what works and what doesn't. So that's one of the reasons why it really doesn't work. And there's a couple others. Should I go on? You want me to go on with this? Or?
Yeah, you can. What you're talking about is good stuff, because many might think, well, the best way to learn is by doing face to face. You could do simulations and training, but until you're out there doing it. So go ahead. Any more?
Yeah. Well, it all has to be proven in real life. But that doesn't mean that that's where you practice. You can practice other places. One of the issues I think with on-the-job training and with training salespeople in general is that there's not a real good definition of what a good salesperson is, at least in most companies. I'll hear this in my seminars. A salesperson will say, "Well, I think I'm pretty good," and I'll say, "Yeah, relative to what? What's the standard? How do we know what good is?" And that's one issue is a picture of what good looks like. Every other profession has it. If you want to watch good baseball, you can see the best in the world, on TV and so on. So that's an issue, and there's another issue of best practices. And what I mean by that is in every profession, there is a set of best practices. And that is certainly true of sales as well. And much of the sales training that we do, we teach the best practices of B2B or distributor sales. And, most of the salespeople have never heard of many of these things because they learned on their own. They were learned on the job. And there's a limit to what exposure you have to best practices if it's just you learning on the job. Where do you get exposed to those kinds of things? Well, you don't. And what happens is on-the-job training leads to people just kind of falling into comfort zones where they feel they're comfortable, and they don't push out of them to see it that there's a bigger world. There's other ways to do these things. So that's on-the-job training is it's not what we want to do today.
Would it be better if the on the job training you had that person with you that who's training you, who stuck with you a long time? I guess that'd be a big ask to have someone from the company just be your partner until you're up to speed.
Yeah, that is a big ask, and there's another little piece here, and that is that requires a skill set, almost a coaching skill set.
Uh-huh.
And salespeople don't generally have both those skill sets. You know, they're good at sales, but they're not necessarily good at coaching, or they're good at coaching, not necessarily good at sales. So it's really hard to find those kind of people and make that kind of investment in a new salesperson that would require.
Yeah, good stuff. I want to talk about motivation, because it seems like if you're a salesperson, you have to be motivated because of all the times you're told no, that can't drag you down.
Yeah.
How do you handle that, David? Like when you train a salesperson to give them that motivation, because on the job, you know, they've got to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, motivation, where it starts is with goals. There has to be something that you want to accomplish, something you want to become, something you want to do, something you strive for, that is really the core of your motivation. People ask me all the time, how do I get a motivated sales force? And I say, hire motivated people. People come in with their own sets of motivations. And when you're working with a group of people, it really does start with a very specific motivating goal or a vision for the company that people can relate to and latch on to. And then it kind of drills from there. I mean, there's a lot of tactical things, like reinforcement and those kinds of things that build motivation. But it starts with the acceptance and commitment to a goal that's bigger than you.
All right. To wrap up, I know you have some special education opportunity coming up, some training to offer. Why don't you talk about that? And I'll put that information below for folks to click through if they'd like more information.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So we have a thing we call the Kahle Sales Management System. And I've been teaching that around the country for decades. We've actually trained over 2,000 sales managers in it. And with the whole thing is COVID and so on, we revised it and we put it, most of the program now is not done live, in a hotel somewhere. We do it via online training and live Zoom meetings. So we're doing it again. We're starting the next cohort. We take a cohort of 12 sales managers through it, and it's the best practices of sales management. Basically, instead of sales, we talk about sales management, and we're teaching the best practices of sales management. So it's a 4-month cohort with work that you do online, and then we supplement it with live meetings with me and a couple other experts, and then it ends with a one-on-one coaching session to just kind of resolve things. So anyway, I think every sales manager should go through it. Talk about training salespeople. Sales managers are the least trained job title in the whole world of sales. Sometimes salespeople get sales training, but sales managers very, very rarely. So they're just left on their own. So this is the antidote. This is the opposite of on-the-job training. We're going to show you how to do sales management really, really well.
It sounds great, David. If I got into sales, I guess I'd have to take one of your courses, but I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah. Everybody sells, Jeff, sooner or later.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you sold me. This is a great topic. Thank you, David, for your time, and we'll look forward to your next time on my show.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jeff.